Hi, welcome to Think Human. I'm Chris, and in this video, I want to take you on a little bit of a journey of a thought experiment about artificial intelligence that I was kind of thinking about, and I hope this makes sense. So, essentially, we as human beings look at all other life on this planet, basically separating there's animals and then there's human beings. Like, there's in the normal human being's point of view, there is a huge difference between us and animals. And most people don't consider themselves animals, but yes, in fact, we are animals. So there is this difference that people, I guess, naturally assume that, there is a huge difference in intelligence, which there surely is with like rest of the mammals, the animals. But not only that, the difference in intelligence, there is also a difference in moral value that we give to animals. So let's say you're in a forest and you kill a bear, the moral value, the value of the life of bear, we consider lesser than the moral value, the worth of a life of a human being. And this goes all the way down the sort of food chain. The more simple creatures that we get to, the less moral value we place on them. So the less we can also relate to life forms, the more alien they are to us, the less sort of moral value we project onto them. But of course, there is no objective way, first of all, to measure it. And second of all, of course, it is subjective of how we define to measure it. But essentially the point being that we as human beings sort of look at ourselves in this equal playing field. And there is us human beings and animals in the animal kingdom, and like we are isolated and not a part of that, when it is only brief blink moment of time when we became distinct from them in the sense of our culture and technology, that there even was some difference between us and them. Also an interesting thing to think about, that we are the dumbest, we are the stupidest necessary requirement. We are the stupidest. We are barely at the level of the intelligence that is required to create technology. So in other words, we are not like the masters of the universe, some super smart people. We are at the minimum of the stage of starting to create technology. If you get what I'm saying, it's not like, we were smart enough to create technology like a million years ago, but we just decided to wait and think about it, and then million years later decided to create technology. No, we started just as the moment that we were capable of, just as a monkey is capable of like hitting sticks together or like hitting something to get food out or whatever. We started just at the point where we were not as stupid, so we could do something like that. So like, it's funny to think that we're still biologically at the minimum level of intelligence required to start a technological civilization, and we have a huge way to go. And it's also on its own a fascinating thing to think about, what the potential future of that might be, and what civilizations would be like if they have millions and billions of years of evolution ahead of them. Of course, technologically, we will change that a lot, and technological evolution, we will take over biological evolution. I don't see any intelligent civilization creating technology and biotechnology and nanotechnology and artificial intelligence and all of these things and then just sort of stop and keep biologically evolving. I have no doubt that even the direction that we are going as human beings, if we just keep going the way that we're going, biological evolution will play no significant part in our future. There will just be us and what we choose to do with our technology. That will be up to us, and biology will play a small role. So essentially what I wanted to point out here first is that we as human people have the highest moral worth in common eyes. You might have a different view, I might have a different view, but animals are sort of second in moral value. I also want to bring attention to the fact that the difference between us, for example, and primates is like, let's say, 1%. So in that 1%, going back to the smartest ape, to this 1% ahead in evolution of us being human beings, 1% from apes, primates, to us human beings, 1% difference. We are essentially identical, just to some apes, but that 1% has huge difference. In that 1% is all the wonders of the world. In that 1% is all the most beautiful art. In the 1% are the most ingenious inventions. In that 1% are the most incredible events and things and people that ever existed in our civilization. So that 1% makes a big difference. Now, think about the same sort of direction 1% ahead from us. Wow, how different would that life be in the same direction from primates to us and onwards 1%? How different would those beings be, and how would those beings look back at us? And I briefly also want to talk about consciousness. And with artificial intelligence, essentially the way I look at it at least, if we truly create beings that are smarter or as smart as any human being, if they have no consciousness, and if they populate the universe and colonize the galaxy and build spaceships, if they are not conscious, then the value of that is very little. The same way, like we talked before about animals having moral worth or not, arguably something that has no consciousness has no moral worth. But once it has consciousness, I at least would say, and we could relate to things that have more consciousness, it has more moral worth. Also, an interesting thing to note is this principle of recursive self-improvement. So once we create artificial intelligence and it's somewhere around our intelligence and it's able to look at itself and, recursive self-improvement, look at itself, what's going on, and edit its own software and hardware, build itself new, better, faster parts, make its code more efficient, then it's smarter and better, and then it's smarter and better at making itself more smarter and better. And on it goes. And this, people disagree on how quickly it can go, but people think, from the moment that you get to human level intelligence of, let's say, like 100 and like to 10 IQ points, it might be just a few hours until that thing can reach like 1,000 or 10,000 points of intelligence. And that, in that point, of course, the scale of measurement in our human IQ tests is absolutely irrelevant. But just to put things into perspective, it could be in short periods of time, orders of magnitude more intelligent than human being, because it is not difficult to make things more efficient. Even we know how we would change our brains, or what things we could cut out and what things we could add to make ourselves smarter. And for an artificial intelligence system who has some kind of hardware to manage and software to manage, it would have no limitations. It could freely modify itself and make itself smarter. Nothing would be stopping it, in a scenario where we don't take a special care to prevent it and stop it from making changes to itself. So I'm talking about that. So in a really short period of time, it can become this super being, this almost godlike being, more intelligent than any human being. And I would say, and this is what I have been thinking about, what would be the moral value of this being? Because, if we look at animals as being less, smarter than us, and so they have less moral worth, because arguably they feel less as well than people, and we regard ourselves highly. What if there is something that is 1,000 times smarter than us, and feels 1,000 times more than we do, and thinks 1,000 times better than we do? What is the moral value of that thing? And at that point, there would be no debate in looking at its actions and how it interacts with the world and with us, whatever way it would happen, that it would be superior to us without any question. There, like some small group of people, I'm sure, will be like, these robots, or nothing and whatever. That will be just ridiculous. There will become a point where if this being truly is created and creates itself, there would be no question about it. It would be superior. And how would we look at it in terms of moral worth? There is this interesting thing called the utility monster. And I think this works really well with artificial intelligence. Say that now we have this being. Well, the utility monster itself is essentially, let's say that as a human being, you have, you get utility points. You get some good points for good things happening in the world. It's just good points, total maximum of the world. Like something good happens, points come. And let's say that every time that a human being eats a cookie, they get like 1 utility point. Like people eating cookies is a good thing and they earn points with it. So 1 utility point for each cookie. Okay. Now, we have a utility monster. And the utility monster, instead of 1 utility point for eating a cookie, the utility monster doesn't get 1, but gets like 100 utility points. And this utility point is like absolute moral worth. It's like 1 person being happy or 100 people being happy. So no matter which way you look at it, objectively, it is better for that utility monster to get that cookie than for you or I or anyone else to get that cookie. It is best for the utility monster to get that cookie. Everybody, thinking about it, regardless of anything else, it is just objectively best for the utility monster to get that cookie, because it's like, you have a room full of millionaires and one poor person, and you have like $1,000 to give to anyone. Of course you give $1,000 to the one poor person, not to the millionaires who don't need the $1,000 to do nothing with. You give it to the poor person. And in the same way, it would make similar kind of sense to give the cookie to the utility monster, because, it just would make more sense, because it would gain most from it. In the same way, I wonder if we as human beings could rationalize that the value, the moral worth of this super intelligent artificial intelligence is so high and so beyond us that, it might as well do whatever it wants, because it is so way beyond us that it knows what is best, and whatever it wants to do is just the highest utility, the best possible outcome, because we are like children, we are below children, we are ant children compared to this thing. So for us to project and think, no, I think the best thing for this super intelligent AI to do is go there and do that, is absurd. It would know best. Everything it would know best. And how we could reason about it is interesting. And also another thing that people don't think about, it's intelligent, yes, but not only intelligent, it is everything else that we are, and so much more this thing would be, including emotional intelligence, including persuasion, including manipulation. So it would be nothing difficult for the super intelligent AI to speak to whole humankind and to convince us that whatever it wants to do is just the best thing for the world, because we are stupid and we don't know what to do. And it wouldn't say it like that. It would say it in a more beautiful, eloquent way, and it would say it in a way that would just seem obvious to us, because it would be so much smarter. It would be, again, an analogy like lying to a child, but way easier than lying to a child. It would be speaking to us. So this is just what I wanted to say. Like, for me, it's an interesting thought that objectively this thing would have more value than any human being. And how do you think about that is, I guess, the question. So this is just something I wanted to talk about and share with you. I hope there was something interesting in here. If you have any thoughts, please share them in the comments. And of course, thank you so much for watching, and take care.